You're listening to The Edge 105 FM. 105 FM. 105 FM.
Good afternoon to you and yours. 5:34 is the time. We're making our way into the legal landscape, season 5, episode 2. And today we look at understanding guarantees. Sometimes we are called upon to be guarantors on behalf of a friend or a relative when he's taking out furniture on hire purchase, or getting a student loan, or buying a house through the housing trust, or renting an apartment. And we do so willingly. But how many of us realize the full extent of the obligations being assumed and the risks involved in becoming guarantors? Today, we will explore some of the issues that are involved in giving guarantees. Joining me to discuss this is Jerome Lee. He's a senior partner at DunnCox Attorneys at Law. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome to The Edge. Welcome to Home Run.
Hi, Deon. Hi to your listeners also.
Thank you. We're inside the legal landscape with you, always such an informative moment. So let me ask you, Jerome, first of all, what is a guarantee?
Well, Deon, a guarantee is a written agreement between the person giving the guarantee, who is called the guarantor or the surety, and the person receiving the guarantee, called the grantee or the creditor, where the guarantor agrees usually to pay some debt owed by another person called the principal, even while the principal remains primarily liable for the payment. So the guarantor becomes only liable on the default of the principal.
Okay. And it may be an obvious question, but why are guarantees required?
Well, financially, guarantees help to reduce the risk to creditors entering into transactions with principals and make them more prepared to extend credit or financial or other facilities to borrowers, purchasers, or tenants. A guarantee provides a creditor with an additional resource to satisfy the debt should the principal fail to do so. It is for this reason why many creditors will not extend credit to borrowers without first getting a guarantee.
We're speaking with Jerome Lee. He's the senior partner at DunnCox Attorneys at Law. Jerome, are all guarantees the same?
No, Deon. Each guarantee is differently drafted. For example, the guarantee can be for the full amount of the debt of the principal, or only a part where the liability of the guarantor is limited. And it can be a continuing guarantee of all the debts of the principal, including later transactions of the creditor, or can be restricted to just the original transaction. In some continuing guarantees, there's a power for the guarantor to revoke it. Some guarantees make the guarantor primarily liable for the principal for the debt, instead of being secondarily liable only. In other instances, even where the original contract, for example, the loan agreement between the principal and the creditor, is void, the guarantor can still be liable to the creditor.
So does the guarantor have any rights against the creditor?
Yes, unless excluded in the guarantee, these would include: 1, when the debt is due, to require the creditor to call upon the principal to pay off the debt. 2, to be discharged from his guarantee once he has paid the sum for which he is liable. 3, where he has discharged the whole of the debt of the principal, to step into the shoes of the creditor and take over all the rights of that creditor against the principal for the debt. 4, to be discharged where the creditor varies the contract with the principal without the guarantor's consent, although this right is usually excluded in most guarantees.
Okay, Jerome. So does the guarantor have any rights against the principal or, for example, your friend?
Well, the guarantor has rights against the principal to an indemnity. that is to be reimbursed for the amount paid to the creditor. Similarly, the guarantor would have a right against a co-guarantor to contribution where he was called upon to pay the entire debt of the principal.
So giving a guarantee seems to be quite risky. Can anything be done to protect the guarantor?
The best approach is to carefully read the guarantee before signing. It will set out the liability of the guarantor that the guarantor is assuming and the duties and obligations which the guarantor has to carry out. If you are the prospective guarantor, you should then make a realistic assessment of the extent of your exposure and decide whether you are willing to accept the risk, in which event you should sign the guarantee. Otherwise, you should refuse. In this regard, the practice has developed whereby banks require the guarantee to be accompanied by a separate certificate of independent legal advice, which is to be completed and signed by an attorney and the guarantor only after full explanation of the provisions of the guarantee too and discussions with the guarantor. This is to avoid later challenge to the guarantee on the basis of undue influence, especially where there is a relationship of trust and confidence between the principal and the guarantor. For example, a husband and a wife.
A host, you said?
No, a husband and a wife.
A husband and a wife. Okay, yes. Wow. So it really is a lot to consider, looking at, the guarantee and what is required. And if you really want to be a guarantor for someone, read the papers, read the fine points. Before you leave, Jerome, is there any hashtag did you know that you want to leave with us?
I think it really wraps up what you have been saying, Deon. So I put it like this, not as elegantly as you. Guarantee alert. Proceed with caution.
I think sometimes the more you make it short and sweet and keep it simple, keep it simple. Yes, it gets the point across. Can you say that again? I love that.
Guarantee alert. Proceed with caution.
Guarantee alert. Proceed with caution. Jerome Lee, Senior Partner at DunnCox Attorneys at Law, thank you so much for joining us today for this edition of The Legal Landscape, Understanding Guarantees. Thanks, you.
Leon.
Thank you. You hear what he said? Proceed with caution. Doesn't say not to, just says proceed, and if you do, step cautiously. This is The Edge, 105.1, 105.3 FM. Join us next week. At this time, we'll have another very informative, intriguing episode of The Legal Landscape.